for wrong. I mean, there's no take back. I've been through this before.
Yeah. Well, which way did it go, George? Which way did it go?
Hello, welcome to Steelers Sanctuary Draft Profiles. I'm Bob Quinn, and today we're going to be looking at a guy a lot of Steelers fans like in round one. It's no secret the Steelers need wide receiver help. So let's take a look at a guy who will probably be available when the Steelers pick, and someone who has wide receiver one upside, and that's Matthew Golden. So let's take a look at the measurables first. He's 5'11", a little bit smaller for a receiver, but definitely bigger than Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and pretty much everybody else on the roster except for Skoranek and Pickens last season. Weight 191, nothing stands out there. The one thing that did stand out is this is the fastest guy at the combine as far as 40 time. He's the only wide receiver who ran under 4.3. Not quite as fast as Xavier Worthy last year, but very impressive nonetheless. Interestingly enough, we talked about Nick Amon-Mori yesterday. His 10-yard split and Matthew Golden's 10-yard split, exactly the same. So it's a good time. I like it. He also had a nice vertical jump. He ended up being ranked 5th overall in the combine wide receiver rankings, which, you know, from an athleticism standpoint is pretty good, especially for a little bit smaller wide receiver. What to like about Matthew Golden? He's an exceptional route runner. Okay, he has a nice stop and go move. He's got a nice when he's running a comeback where he's, you know, sinks and comes back on a dime. Sometimes gets a little high, gives his routes away, but overall he's very smooth, very good route runner. The other thing is he plays his best when the lights are brightest. In big games, this kid shows up, which is an excellent trait in the NFL because they're all big games, but he's a guy who could really help the Steelers and a guy who plays his best in primetime, national audiences. You know, Mike Tomlin's going to love a kid like that. He also improved in 2023. Wasn't great at this, but there was noticeable improvement in 2024 in his combat catch ability. Being a little bit smaller wide receiver, that does matter. So he's still got more work to do, but he showed 23 to 24, he was getting better. And like I mentioned before, nice thing about this kid is he really does have wide receiver one upside. Yes, he's a little bit smaller, but he's got that route runner. And if you paired him with a guy like George Pickens, or if the Steelers traded for DK Metcalf, somebody like that, this is a guy who, if you've got your big guy running the go balls and him working the middle of the field, not possession receiver because he's very dangerous run after catch, but he's a guy who could really make some interesting things happen. So what's the downside? He sometimes loses his focus and he drops the ball. Sometimes he wants to run before the catch. That is something that can get better, but Steeler fans, he's not Deontay Johnson, but he is a guy who it's been an issue during his career, and it's something he's going to have to work hard on the next level. Also, occasionally he doesn't take plays off, but he gives up on routes too early. Sometimes if he feels like he's being pressed and he's got no chance to get open, which, you know, in the NFL, things are going to happen. The defensive backs get paid too. And if you get jammed and you get pressed, you know, you're going to need to keep working. You know, you may have to adjust. You may have to run a totally different route, but you got to keep working. And that's something I think good coaching at the next level will help him. Whether he gets that if he comes to Pittsburgh is a totally different question. However, he is a guy who, you know, that can be worked out of him, I think. He's a little inconsistent on the top of his route and working back to the catch point, which is kind of to be expected with a little bit shorter receiver. This is a guy who he's not going to tower over corners like a George Pickens or a Jaden Higgins or a CD Lamb or guys like that. He's going to have to work a little bit at the top of the route. When he has a combat catch, it's going to be a real combat catch, because there's actually going to be corners covering him who are just a teeny bit bigger than him, maybe have longer wingspans, but that is something that he showed. And because he's a burner, it'll be all about separation. And he is good at getting separation. So don't get it twisted. These are nitpicky things. But if he's going to be your first round draft pick, these are things that the Steelers should watch and make sure he improves on. So what's the Steelers sanctuary verdict? Pittsburgh has not drafted a wide receiver in the first round since Mike Tomlin has taken over the team. The last guy was Santonio Holmes in 2006, the year before Mike Tomlin arrived. Now, the good news for Steeler fans is he should be available at pick 21. It's I see him as probably the fourth, maybe the fifth wide receiver off the board. The McMillan kid from Arizona is going to go first. I feel like Burden could go second, maybe Igbuka third, maybe Golden third, but I feel like this is not going to be a draft where, the third wide receiver is off the board before the Steelers pick. So he does have wide receiver one upside. He's one of the few in this draft who do. If you watch the podcast, you know that I've said this is a wide receiver 2 draft class. That doesn't mean they can't all be really good wide receiver 2s, but this is, to quote Daniel Jeremiah, a starters, not stars draft. Okay. So if he's on the board, let's say Kenneth Grant and Walter Nolan have fallen and he's sitting there, and even if they're both on the board, this is a big decision for the Steelers. If we don't see them get a Devontae Adams, a DK Metcalf, or some mystery guest as a veteran wide receiver 1 potential, or at the very least a high-end wide receiver 2 to pair with George Pickens, that might reveal that they have a lot of confidence in this kid to step in and be a contributor right away. I know some people don't necessarily like rookie wide receivers, but I disagree. I think over the last 5 years, the drafts have shown us that even in all the way out to the 4th, 5th round, kids can come in and contribute right away. Not every kid. It's got to be a special talent. This kid's got special talent. So if he's still there and the Steelers don't sign anybody big, don't be surprised if they call his name. That's all I got. Coming up tomorrow, going to be looking at Amari Hampton. And then on Saturday, we're going to look at Ashton Genty. And then on Sunday, a new show is debuting on Steelers Sanctuary. Dave and myself are going to take a look at the draft class. We're going to do this around 6:30. We're still ironing out the time. By Saturday, I should have it for you. But look forward to that. Hope you tune in. It'll be live so we can all talk draft. Should be a lot of fun. Until tomorrow, have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Why am I so sad? Am I doing the wrong thing?
It's just that sometimes goodbyes are a bitch.
T-shirt idea. Goodbye stink.
I'll see you tomorrow at lunch.
I am looking forward to lunch.